The evening air in Nairobi was heavy and warm. Maya wiped her forehead with the back of her hand as she stepped out of the bakery, tired from another long shift. Her back ached, her feet hurt, and all she wanted was to crawl into bed beside her twin daughters, Zara and Zira. But tonight was different. Maya, you promised. Her best friend Tasha's voice echoed in her mind. Tasha had begged her to go on a blind date. You can't spend your whole life working double shifts and raising twins alone. You deserve to smile again. Maya sighed. She didn't have the energy for a date. Still, she had agreed. A promise was a promise. She hurried home, changed into a simple floral dress, and brushed her natural curls into a neat bun. She looked at herself in the mirror and tried to smile. Her dress wasn't fancy, but it made her feel a little pretty. Clutching her tiny handbag, she left for Velvet Grove Cafe, one of the most expensive places she had ever stepped into. Inside, the cafe buzzed softly with laughter and the clinking of glasses. The scent of roasted coffee beans filled the air. Maya's heart pounded. She scanned the room, searching for a man in a grey jacket, just like Tasha had described. Her eyes landed on him. A tall man, wearing a sleek grey blazer, sat by the window, sipping cappuccino. He looked calm, almost too perfect. That's him, Maya thought, trying to steady her nerves. She took a deep breath and began to walk toward him. Her low heels clicked against the marble floor. Just as she reached his table, her foot caught on a chair. She stumbled a little but caught herself quickly. Smooth. Maya. Real smooth, she thought, cheeks burning. Clearing her throat, she gave him a small smile. Hi, sorry I'm late. Are you Elijah? The man looked up from his phone, his deep brown eyes sparkling with amusement. A soft chuckle escaped his lips. Nope, he said, his voice warm and rich. But please, sit down anyway. Maya froze. Her stomach dropped. She stared at him, wide-eyed, but his inviting smile made her relax a little. Unsure what else to do, she sat down, her face bright red. You look like you could use a break, he said kindly. Maya laughed nervously. Long day, she muttered. To her surprise, he didn't seem bothered. Instead, he leaned forward, genuinely interested. Tell me about it. And somehow, Maya found herself talking. About the hospital, the bakery, and her two daughters who made all the exhaustion worth it. The man listened closely, nodding and laughing at the right moments. He asked questions too, making her feel like she mattered. For the first time in a long while, Maya felt seen. Her phone buzzed in her bag. She pulled it out and read Tasha's message. Where are you? Elijah is waiting. Her heart sank. She looked up at the man, her face burning with embarrassment. I sat at the wrong table, she admitted, voice small. The man laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that made Maya smile despite herself. Maybe you did. But maybe the wrong table isn't so wrong after all. Maya stood up awkwardly. I'm really sorry, she said, gathering her things. Don't be, he said with a wink. I'm Dante, by the way. Dante Mwangi. Maya, she said, giving him a shy smile before hurrying off. She found her actual blind date, Elijah, sitting alone at another table. His grey jacket was wrinkled, and his bored expression didn't match the lively photo Tasha had shown her. Their conversation was dry, full of awkward pauses. Maya forced a smile, but her mind kept drifting back to the man she had accidentally met. 20 minutes later, she made an excuse and left, stepping into the cool night air. As she walked home, one thought refused to leave her mind. Maybe mistakes aren't always mistakes. And somewhere in the city, a man named Dante was smiling to himself, wondering if he'd ever see the clumsy girl with the bright smile again. The sun was bright 2 days later, casting golden rays over the city, when Maya found herself at the bustling farmer's market, balancing a tray of fresh cupcakes and 2 steaming cups of coffee. The sweet, buttery smell of pastries mixed with the earthy scent of fresh vegetables and sun-warmed wood. She had a meeting with a small catering client, and she hoped, prayed, really, that the treats would leave a lasting impression. The market was crowded and noisy, alive with the sounds of weekend excitement. People bustled past her, laughing, bargaining with vendors, shouting greetings across the aisles. Children darted between stands, clutching candy apples, and a musician strummed a guitar under shady oak. Maya focused intently on her steps, weaving through the crowd, trying desperately not to spill anything. The tray trembled slightly in her hands. Suddenly, a solid figure appeared in front of her, too late for her to stop. She bumped into him hard, almost losing the cupcakes. "Careful," a deep, familiar voice teased, warm with amusement. Maya gasped and looked up, her heart tripping over itself. It was Dante. He was dressed casually this time, in faded jeans and a crisp white shirt, but somehow he looked even more confident, even more impossibly handsome in the sunlight. His dark eyes sparkled with mischief. "You again," Maya said, a surprised laugh bubbling up, a smile creeping onto her face before she could stop it. "Fate has a funny way of working, doesn't it?" he replied smoothly, his lips tilting into a grin. For a long, sweet moment, they just stood there, grinning at each other like old friends reunited after years apart. The noise and chaos of the market seemed to blur around them, fading into a soft hum. "Here," Dante said, reaching out and steadying the tray with one large, steady hand. His fingers brushed against hers, sending a jolt of electricity up her arm. "Let me help you." Gratefully, she let him guide her to a small wooden bench tucked under the shade of a colorful awning. They sat side by side, the smell of roasted coffee beans swirling around them. Maya handed him a cupcake, chocolate with raspberry icing, as a silent thank you. He accepted it with a mock bow, making her laugh. They sipped their coffee and nibbled on the sweet treats, the conversation flowing easily between them. Maya felt herself relaxing. It was too easy to talk to Dante. Too dangerously easy. "So," she said between bites, licking a smear of icing from her thumb, "what do you really do, besides saving clumsy cupcake carriers at the market?" Dante smiled mischievously, a glint in his eye. "I run a little business." Maya raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Oh really? What kind of business? Are we talking lemonade stands or world domination?" He chuckled, a low, warm sound that made Maya's stomach flip. "You might have heard of Mwangi Industries," he said casually, like he was commenting on the weather. Maya almost choked on her cupcake. She coughed and spluttered, wide-eyed. "Wait, you're the Dante Mwangi, the CEO of Mwangi Industries?" He nodded with an easy shrug, as if it was no big deal, as if he hadn't just dropped a bomb in her lap. Maya stared at him, stunned. Her mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't even known existed. You let me ramble about cupcake icing and my rent problems, to a CEO." Dante laughed, a rich, genuine sound that made her heart squeeze. "I wasn't pitying you, Maya. I was admiring you." Maya's cheeks warmed, not from embarrassment this time, but from something softer, sweeter. Admiration. Affection. Something that felt dangerously like hope. As they sat together in the warm afternoon sun, sharing coffee, cupcakes, and laughter, Maya felt a flicker of something stirred deep inside her heart, something she hadn't dared feel in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, her story was about to change. The days that followed felt like a dream, a bright, dizzying dream, for Maya. She and Dante began to meet often. Sometimes for coffee at little cafes tucked away on side streets, sometimes for long, aimless walks around the city where they laughed about silly things and shared secrets they didn't mean to. Each time they met, Maya felt herself falling deeper, into laughter, into connection, into something that felt dangerously close to love. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. One breezy Saturday afternoon, Dante invited her to a private art exhibition. Maya had never been to anything so formal before. Her hands shook slightly as she borrowed a simple navy dress from Tasha, her roommate, and prayed it would be good enough. She pulled her curls into a loose bun, slipped on a pair of low heels, and gave herself a pep talk in the mirror. When she arrived at the grand entrance of the gallery, Dante was already there, waiting. He wore a tailored black suit that hugged his tall frame perfectly. His dark hair was neatly combed, his eyes lit up with an unmistakable warmth when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said softly, his voice low and sincere. Maya smiled shyly, feeling butterflies dance in her stomach. "Thanks." Inside, the gallery was a different world. one of elegance and quiet sophistication. Crystal chandeliers bathed the marble floors in golden light. Elegant people in evening wear sipped wine and murmured in low, cultured voices as they admired the art. Immediately, Maya felt out of place. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She clutched her purse tightly, her fingers digging into the leather strap. Dante noticed. Without hesitation, he reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. His grip was steady and reassuring. "Just stay by me," he whispered into her ear, and somehow, the panic eased a little. But not everyone was pleased to see her there. From across the room, a woman spotted them, tall, statuesque, with high cheekbones, sleek black hair, and cold, assessing eyes. Her presence seemed to part the crowd like a ship cutting through water. Ziri, Dante's older sister. She approached swiftly, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor, every movement radiating controlled power. "Dante," she said with a tight, polished smile. "Who's your friend?" "This is Maya," Dante said proudly, his thumb brushing reassuringly over the back of Maya's hand. "Maya, this is my sister, Ziri." Ziri's eyes raked over Maya with a look that was both polite and cutting. Her smile remained, but it was brittle, like thin glass ready to shatter. "A pleasure," Ziri said smoothly, offering her hand. Maya shook it tentatively, feeling the chill in her touch. "Enjoy the night," Ziri added before turning away. But as she walked past, Maya caught the whispered words, cold and sharp. "This world isn't for everyone." Maya's stomach twisted into painful knots. Her cheeks burned with shame and insecurity. She wanted to run. She wanted to disappear. Later that evening, after hours of trying to act composed, they slipped outside to the small garden behind the gallery. The cool night air kissed Maya's skin, and she breathed deeply, trying to steady herself. Dante turned to her, his face shadowed with regret. "I'm sorry about Ziri," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "She thinks she knows what's best for me." Maya stared down at her shoes, her heart heavy. "Maybe she's right," she whispered. "Maybe I don't belong here." "No," Dante said, stepping closer. His voice was firm, unwavering. "She's wrong, Maya. So wrong." Maya wanted desperately to believe him. But a small voice inside her, the voice that had lived with her for so long, kept whispering, "You don't belong. You're just pretending." When Dante drove her home that night, the car was filled with a heavy silence. Maya sat stiffly, lost in a whirlwind of doubt and fear. At her apartment, before she could slip away into the night, Dante caught her hand, holding it gently but insistently. "I." He stopped, as if weighing his next words carefully. Maya looked up at him, her heart caught in her throat. "I like you, Maya," Dante said softly, his voice thick with sincerity. "I want to keep seeing you." Maya's heart fluttered, her pulse quickening at the weight of his words. She felt the warmth of his hand enveloping hers, but the doubts in her mind swirled like a storm cloud. What did this mean? Where was this going? For a moment, the world outside seemed to fade away, the busy streets, the hum of distant traffic, the soft buzz of the city, until there was only the quiet, steady presence of Dante and the uncertainty that clouded her thoughts. She searched his face, his eyes full of honesty, but she couldn't shake the lingering fear that gnawed at her. "I'm just tired," Maya said finally, pulling her hand back slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a lie, of course. It wasn't just exhaustion. It was fear. Fear of stepping into a world where she didn't belong, fear of being too different, too out of place. Fear of the things Dante couldn't change, no matter how much he cared. Dante didn't push her. He simply nodded, understanding that her silence wasn't rejection but a battle with the internal struggles she couldn't voice. "Good night, Maya," he said quietly, his eyes soft, but she could see the trace of disappointment in them. Maya closed the door behind her, the cool night air rushing to fill the space he'd left. Inside her small apartment, everything felt too quiet, too still. She tiptoed over to her daughter's room, gazing at their peaceful faces, their soft breathing filling the silence. She kissed their foreheads, brushing their hair gently as she stood there, lost in thought. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that for the first time in a long while, something about this new chapter felt both terrifying and beautiful. Maya sat down on the edge of her bed, the weight of her thoughts heavy in her chest. Her life had been simple, uncomplicated, until now. The reality of her situation was inescapable. She was not just Maya from the cupcake stand anymore. She was entangled in a world so different from her own. She was starting to wonder if she had what it took to step fully into that world and leave behind the small one she knew so well. And yet, she couldn't deny the part of her that wanted to try. The part that was scared but hopeful. The part that wanted to believe in a future that was different from anything she'd ever imagined. The weeks that followed only made the situation more complicated. Every time Maya and Dante met, the whispers around them grew louder, more persistent. People who didn't know her, who didn't know anything about her life or her heart, had opinions. And it wasn't just Ziri. Business associates, family friends, and even some of Dante's own employees began to make their thoughts known. "She's just after his money," they murmured. "She won't fit into his world." Each of those whispers felt like an invisible hand, pushing Maya further from where she belonged, or so it seemed. At first, she tried to ignore them. But with every conversation, every judgmental glance, every new face that entered their world, Maya could feel the weight of the accusations pressing down on her. She didn't belong. She couldn't possibly belong. One evening, Dante invited her to a charity gala, one of the most anticipated events of the year. The guest list was full of Nairobi's elite, politicians, business moguls, celebrities. It was the kind of event where people came not just to donate, but to be seen, to maintain their social standings. Maya almost said no. The idea of walking into a ballroom full of strangers, where she felt like an outsider, made her stomach twist. She wanted to hide, to curl into herself and escape the attention. But then she remembered Dante's smile, how he had looked at her as though she mattered, as though she was the one thing in the room that he cared about. And she knew, even though it terrified her, that she couldn't say no. She wore a simple emerald dress. It wasn't designer. It wasn't flashy. But it was hers. It made her feel beautiful, in a way she hadn't in a long time. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, but herself. When they arrived at the ballroom, all eyes turned. Some admired her, the sharpness of her dress, the confidence in her stride. But many, most, looked at her with veiled disdain. They could tell she wasn't one of them. She didn't fit. But Dante stayed close, his hand firmly on the small of her back, his presence a shield from the coldness of the room. As they moved through the crowd, she kept her chin high, even though her hands trembled in the confines of her clutch. He was proud of her. She was sure of it. He was proud to have her by his side, no matter what anyone thought. Then Ziri found her. Maya didn't need to look up to know she was coming. She could feel the sharpness of Ziri's gaze even before the tall woman arrived. Ziri's heels clicked with purpose, her presence slicing through the crowd. She leaned in close, her voice a cool whisper. "This is our world, dear. You'll never fit." Maya's heart cracked. She wanted to say something, to defend herself, to fight back, but her throat went dry, and her tongue seemed tied. Ziri didn't want to know her. She wanted to make her feel small. Before she could respond, Dante stepped forward, taking the microphone at the center of the stage. His confident, charismatic presence drew the attention of the entire room. Maya froze, not knowing what he was about to say. He smiled, looking at her with such depth that it felt as though he was speaking to her soul. "Tonight, I want to thank someone," Dante began, his voice carrying over the hum of the crowd. "Someone who reminds me that life is not about money or status. It's about real love and real people." He turned toward her, his eyes soft but steady. "Maya, you saved me from a life of fake smiles and shallow talks. You're not just my date. You're the love of my life." The room went still. Gasps followed, a ripple of surprise, confusion, and admiration sweeping across the crowd. Dante's words echoed through the grand hall, and for the first time that evening, Maya didn't feel small. She felt seen. Tears welled up in her eyes as she stood frozen, overcome by the unexpected weight of his confession. Without a moment's hesitation, she ran into his arms. The room blurred around them as she felt the security of his embrace, the comfort of his love. For the first time, she felt like she was home. 6 months later, Maya wasn't just Dante's girlfriend. She had found her place, her purpose. She became the head of community initiatives at Mwangi Industries, pouring her heart into building schools, hospitals, and support systems for those who needed it most. She used her passion for helping others to guide her decisions, making real, lasting change in the city she loved. Her twin daughters adored Dante, calling him Dad with a kind of love and trust that only children could offer. They all became a family, bound not just by blood, but by love, understanding, and the kind of commitment that transcended the walls of privilege. And on a sunny afternoon, standing outside the children's hospital they had built together, Dante pulled Maya close, his arms strong around her waist. "We found our own world, Maya," he whispered into her hair, his voice filled with contentment. "And it's perfect." Maya smiled, her heart full. It wasn't the world she had imagined for herself, but it was hers, and it was real. Sometimes, the wrong table leads you exactly where you're meant to be. And as she looked up at Dante, her heart swelling with love, Maya knew this was just the beginning of their forever. Maya and Dante's journey proves that no matter how different our worlds may seem, love, hope, and determination can bridge any gap. Maya's story shows us that sometimes the hardest battles lead us to the most beautiful places, a place where we truly belong. If you believe that every story has a chance for a second chance, or if you've ever felt like an outsider, let Maya's journey remind you, it's never too late to rewrite your story. If you enjoyed this video and believe in the power of love and perseverance, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs a little hope today. Keep watching for more inspiring stories that will touch your heart. Thanks for being part of this journey, and remember, the best chapters are yet to come.